two things here first to make sure you guys can share. There we go. All righty. Well, since I'm not hearing any exciting things that happened over the weekend, although it looks like Izzy has a new puppy dog there. So that's kind of cool. At any rate, let's see what we can do here today. Would you like to just would you like to just signal each other, or shall we talk about what happened? How about if we do a little talking about what happened? Paula, you seem to be ready to go here, so I'm going to call on you first. Could you update us on how you're doing?
With the book project, or just like in general?
You can start with either one.
Okay, I'll go with the book one. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't been working on it a lot, but I think I'm figuring out finally how to do the paragraph styles. I think I already applied all the things that needed to be applied to. I think right now I'm struggling with like the beginning of the stories, like where there's a title and the name of the author. So that's where I'm trying to like figure that out. But other than that, I'm already thinking about like what illustrations I want. I'm like rereading the stories so I can kind of find like a common thread through all the stories and make some good illustrations for the cover and maybe put some throughout the book. But that's where I'm at right now. I've been really busy, so I haven't had a lot of time to work on it, unfortunately.
Okay. So you brought up two points that I think are good ones for all of us. One is that it can be a bit of a steep learning curve to first get this idea of what the styles are about, how to create them, and then how to vary them and actually do some design with it. So I think the main thing though is, like you said, is first you just simply got the styles created, and that can be a big effort the first time you do this. And even for those of us that maybe have used InDesign in the past, but maybe not for a while, it doesn't necessarily mean that you used styles in the past. And then the third version of that is maybe it's simply you did use styles in the past, but it was your first time and it was a struggle then. So now, and it's been a while, so I can't really remember how I did it. So all of that stuff just adds up to the creation of the styles in the first place takes a lot of concentration and a lot of effort. I do want to repeat though, I am not lying to you that once that becomes a part of your routine with InDesign, it's a real time saver. I am not lying about that particular thing. I lie about other stuff, but not that. No, I don't. But the idea of using the styles really, really does make a difference. And so hang in there and continue to ask questions as you guys have been, and we will make that all happen. So, and your other one was, besides then just adjusting the styles, the other question really relates to what look maybe that you want, especially at the beginning of the first paragraph. Is that right? Is my understanding your questions right? Okay.
Professor DeMoore?
Yes.
When you talk, it's kind of off your voice. Like you can barely hear you.
Turn your volume up.
No, I mean you're being cut off.
Kind of lagging a little bit.
I'm being cut off.
Audio's lagging.
Yeah.
It kind of cuts in and out.
Great. Okay. Well, let's try a little bit longer here and see if that's going to remain that way.
Are you recording this?
Yep.
I am.
Okay.
Am I still cutting out?
Lolly was going to join too, but she said her computer was overheating, so she was going to join in just a little bit.
Who did you say?
Sit Lolly.
Oh, Sit Lolly. Okay.
Sit Lolly.
Okay. I tell you what, I'm going to move to a different location if my audio is breaking up. And let's see if I can't fix that a little bit, okay? Okay. Let's see if this will make a difference. I'm a little closer to the router, I guess. All right. Let me share my screen, and we're going to look at InDesign. And I'm going to just make a paragraph in here. And okay, so this is my first paragraph. It honestly doesn't matter that much what's in there, what kind of text, what typeface it is, or anything to begin with. And so you're setting up a look. The point of what you're doing by setting up styles is you are first setting up rules that you can change the rules as the game is being played. And, but the rules are set up, I don't know, maybe that's not a good analogy. I thought it was, I was onto something there. Maybe I'm not. You are setting up rules though, and you can play the game with these rules and have a lot of flexibility with them. And the analogy just doesn't work. So, okay, so I'm clicked in a paragraph though.
I keep writing down all of these analogies, so.
Yeah, I thought I had something. That was a total waste. So we're going to just start directly. So I'm clicked in a paragraph here, and I don't care what this looks like right now. But I am going to open up the paragraph styles. And I need to have, not the paragraph, just the paragraph styles. And I need to also have the character styles open as well. So I have these two that we're working with. Now, the key to save yourself some time is for the very first paragraph, the diminuendo one. We need to think ahead and know that we're going to embed some character styles or nest. Sorry, InDesign uses the word nest. Nests two character styles in that paragraph. So it makes sense for me to create the character styles first, so I don't have to go back and forth a couple times. So the character styles, I'm in that one first, and I create a new character style. And one of them is going to be for how I want the very first letter to look. So I'm going to name it, first of all, something that makes sense for that particular application. So I just am going to call it initial letter or first letter, because that makes sense to me. It's the first letter. Okay, now over here under the, when I click basic character formats, that is exactly the same as the regular character window. So here's where I pick the typeface that I want to use. I pick the style I want it to be. I pick the size, perhaps, that I want it to be. And if I want to change its case or anything like that, any changes in leading, tracking position, any of that stuff I make in here. And this may be nothing like what I have in the end, but I'm just making the style is the key. So I say, okay, now I'm going to make yet another new character style. And when I open it up, I have a choice of basing this one on any character style I've already made. And so I could base it on first letter. I actually don't want to do that in this case, but I have that option. I do want to name it. Again, something that makes sense for how I'm applying it. So this character style is going to be how I want the letters that the first couple words that immediately follow that first letter. So it's this whole process is called diminuendo. So I tend to name it diminuendo. At this point, if any of you are still having trouble with this particular thing, I would suggest that you name these styles exactly as I do, because it'll make us easier to troubleshoot if there's some issue. On the other hand, if this is making sense to you already, you've got this stuff, you're good to go, then you know that the name of it just simply needs to make sense to you. Do not leave it what it currently comes up as, character style 1. That just is not helpful. So again, I'm going to call it diminuendo. There we go. And I look at the formats again. So font family, I had Cabell for the very first letter. I think that I'm going to move into a different typeface though for my main body of text. So I'm going to switch to Minion. And the style, I'm going to go with, I think, semi-bold, small caps, and I'm going to make it at we'll go to 18 point right off the bat. Okay, and I'm going to say 18 there. And okay. All right, now I have my two character styles created. So now I'm going to go to the paragraph styles, create a new paragraph, and and wait a minute, sorry. Okay, so the basic paragraph style here is what I'm going to wait a minute, what am I doing? Okay, here we go, fine. Oh, I see what's going on. It's just hiding up here. Okay, so I'm going to call this first paragraph. And I don't have a previous one to base it on, so that's going to stay the same. The next paragraph that follows it, I normally want that to be a continuation of what I currently have. That's why it says the next style is going to be the same as this one. And that's okay in this particular case. But under basic character formats, now I'm going to say that that first paragraph is based on Minion Pro, regular 12-point size. The leading, though, I'm going to change to 18. And the key one here to get the diminuendo going is to go down to this option, the drop caps and nested styles. Now, before I go there, I want to remind us that you've got all of these other options that you can control the look of any paragraph style. You know, I haven't gone there because I want to make sure we get this basic thing yet. Some of you, again, that have this down now, you should be looking at some of these other options to further customize or design the look of what you're working with. But the main one is to go, at least on the first paragraph, is the drop caps nested style option. And in here, I'm now first deciding what I want that first letter to do. Do I want it to drop down into the text, into the paragraph, or do I want it to sit above and be on the same baseline as the first line? How many characters or letters do I want to apply this look to? That's what I'm deciding here. So I'm going to drop it down two lines, one character, and the character style that I'm going to use here is going to be first letter. Okay? Then down here, I'm going to click New Nested Style, to add the diminuendo part through, and I decide how many words. This is a little confusing. You wouldn't know that if you click on that, you can change the number of words because it just looks like that. So you can click either of these and change it from character to words, or up to, or whatever that might be. I'm going to go through 3 words. Oops. Through 3 words. There we go. Alrighty. So then I say, okay. Now we've got the styles created, and because I was clicked in this paragraph already, it's automatically applied. If I had not been clicked in here, then it wouldn't have applied it yet. I would have to click in there and then click on the first paragraph style. So now I look at it and decide, is this something I like? And I really don't. So this is where I now start to do some designing with it. Let's make this say an actual word. Okay, so we've got some real words here that it's going to help us to know what these changes should be. So this L, first of all, is a hard letter to be the first letter because there's so much space between this upright on the left side of the L and the rest of its word. So it looks like L-et is what it looks like right now. Well, that doesn't work. So I need to either turn this over so it's closer by doing that. But when I do that, notice this stuff down here moves as well. So that doesn't work. So what I can possibly do is let's look at diminuendo with this light version applied to not just the first letter, but applied to, since the first word is a 3-letter word, applied to that entire first word. So again, I'm just clicked in the paragraph that I want to adjust, open it up, and under drop caps nested styles, instead of it applying to 1 character, I'm going to go to 3 characters, and I have the preview box selected. So I can see this here now. So I kind of like the let, but I don't like the fact that it jumps up higher to the rest of that first line. So instead of having this drop down 2 lines, I'm going to take this off. Whoops, 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 whoops. What did I do there? Oh, yeah. This is right. So I'm keeping it on the same line through 3 characters. But what I need to do now is adjust the size of the character style that's creating this look on the word let. Okay, so I say, okay, here, go back to the character style of first letter. And I'm going to change this, because right now it's 18 point, the same point size as the rest of the text. So as I raise this point size, it gets bigger, but notice it's not dropping down into the text. It's sitting on the same baseline, but going up. And it's doing that because of the point size of the letter, not because of the number of lines that it's dropped in. Okay, so let's stay there just a little bit longer. Whoops. So here we go. So first letter, and I know my point size for everything else is 18. So I want a multiple of 18. So let's see, 1836. Let's try. Oh, I know what we're going to do. We're going to try. Yeah, let's try 72. Okay, and okay, so now it's really sitting up here above it, but I'm going to go back to first paragraph and drop caps and drop it down. Uh, drop it down. Well, that didn't do what I expected it to do. I wanted it to just drop down to, this is, I can still adjust this, but I thought that this right away would drop down 2 lines and have it still stick up above, which it does, but way more than I want it to. So we're going to go back one more time to the character style over here, open it back up in its size, and let's take it down to perhaps there. Let's see. Then stick it back on the grid. And yeah. Okay, so now my whole point of doing this was because of the strange connection between the E and the L. So I applied it to the whole first letter of word since it was a short word. And now the only thing I have left to do is I do want to turn these away. So I'm option, there we go, option and just right arrow to move these guys over. And so, so that's a little variation on what we've been doing. I hope what you can see there, and you need to ask me now, is this relationship between the character styles and the paragraph styles. I purposely set up kind of an odd combination here to show you what controls what, moving back and forth between the two. So, Paula, tell me if I completely threw you way off now, or how are we doing?
I think I mean I understood. I've been taking notes and I can like look back at them when I'm doing it. But I think my main problem is like I'm here and then I'm like, oh yes, I understand it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, my notes are all clear, whatever, and then I go back to do it on my own, and that's when I get confused. So I think it's just a matter of me like being consistent with it, because since it's a new program for me, I'm still trying to get the hang of it. But yeah, this definitely did help.
Okay, all right. While I'm still, I want to see. Actually, I'm going to do it this way so I can see you all. Okay, so I just did that part with the paragraph character styles, a little bit more variety with it in the sense that I was setting them up again, but then also moving a little bit more into that now trying to design with those styles. So while I'm still on that part of our assignment, that part of our subject here, does anybody else have something you'd like me to either repeat or clarify with the paragraph and character styles? Anybody else? So everybody's got character paragraph styles down. Yeah? Woohoo! Give everybody a woohoo! Nathan?
Not perfectly, but it's, yeah, I have like the paragraph and character styles in there, just like perfecting them and like knowing how to use them correctly is where I'm at. But they're in there.
Okay, very good. I'm happy. That's a good sign. Okay, well, so Paula, I don't think I've answered all your questions here yet, though. So let me stay with you a little bit longer. Although, where did you go? I'm not seeing you on my screen. Is Paula still there? There you are. Oh, you moved to a different spot. Okay, so do you have? I mean, the other part kind of relates to diminuendo. Can you ask that question again for me?
The part where I was having trouble, or where I was like leaving off from the last time I worked on it, was where I was making the title of the stories. And then I noticed that one of my stories deleted, so I had to do everything all over again. And then I think that kind of messed up because the paragraph style, because it was showing the little plus again. So I was trying to figure out what was going on. But you know how InDesign is, if you start clicking a bunch of things and adding different stuff, it just starts, you just kind of have to retrace your steps and trying to figure out where you are. So that's where I am at right now, at least with like the titles. But I think what my sister did last time was she deleted the paragraph style with the little addition, with the little add thing, and then she created a new one to kind of just start fresh. So I think that's what I'm going to have to end up doing, at least
Yeah.
for that.
Yes, I think that that's a very good plan. The only thing I would reverse that order slightly. I'd make the new paragraph style before deleting the old one. And then when you are doing it, the other thing is, and Hatsine pointed this out, I think last class period, where you need something we're not necessarily used to doing, but pay particular attention to where your cursor is when you start making changes on a style. So I briefly mentioned that here when I just did that first little demo, in that I said I was clicked in the first paragraph, and then I went and made the character paragraph styles, and then when I closed that window, it was already wham, it was there. Now, that's all fine and good at the first stages, but if you've already gotten something created and your cursor is still in that paragraph, and you go and you think you're making a new paragraph style for something else, and you're still in that paragraph with the cursor, it's going to change it on you. And then it is also going to add the plus to the existing style that you already applied. So it can easily, quickly complicate your life. So I think that attention to where the cursor is before you start creating styles is helpful. So that either means click in the paragraph where you do want to apply the one you're about to create, or simply go away from your text tool and go to the arrow before you start doing anything, one or the other. Hatsine, I think you had a point there.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that what I don't know if that's what happened to her, but it happened to me too, and I learned, figured out what it was that happened. When I did create one of my diminuendo and the paragraph styles and nested everything, and then I applied it, because of course I was choosing to enlarge that point size, it ends up taking up more space in that story. So then that story might end up at the bottom having that little plus sign, because now you have to like make more paragraphs and more pages for that story. So
Yeah.
it didn't necessarily delete, it's still in there, but because you made like changes to the point size somewhere, it's now taking up larger space in there.
Mm-hmm.
So you might just have to go in and insert more pages right in between those stories to like, and then, click on and then like flow your text again, your story. Because that did happen to me on one of them.
Yes. Sorry, I noticed that Jay wasn't here. I was just sending him an invite.
I don't know if that makes sense what I just said, but
it does. I think, it's all about what works best for each of you, as long as you are aware of where the cursor is. And to be honest with you, when I was first getting the plus sign, for me, when I was first learning it, and I'd get the paragraph styles created, and I thought, okay, I'm onto something. I'm onto the next step now. And then and I wasn't paying attention to the fact that I'd already changed a paragraph style, because I thought that was done. And then I looked back and I said, where's this plus coming from? How did that happen? And so it took me a while to figure out, I think, what you figured out the other day, and that is, and what I'm kind of trying to repeat here, is that if you are not aware of where the cursor is when you go to make a next step, it will change it on you. And that's a normal thing, to not pay that much attention to where the cursor is, because we don't have to do that in any other program, I don't believe. So it's just some little thing that you have to be aware of here.
Yeah, but I mean, even like even when I was careful with the where the cursor was too, like after I was aware of that, that first paragraph, by changing that point size, it took up more space on that page, on that first page. So then it kind of drops everything down more. So at the very end of the story, then you got the plus sign in that last paragraph that shows that there's more text in that text box. So I had to create 2-3 more pages just to fit my story on after it. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense,
Okay.
and it's okay to add more pages and sometimes
Yeah.
delete. And there's an let me share my screen again. And
So I'm wondering if that's what happened with Paula's, that it just kind of,
oh,
you know.
no.
I did have like a bunch of extra pages. I probably have like 5 or 10 extra pages, and it still wasn't showing up. Because I remember that did happen to me once, where I didn't notice how the text box was just like elongated, and then it was just like all the way at the end. I don't know if that was exactly what happened, but I was like looking for it, and I just could not find it. I don't know if I just didn't add it in, because I had to restart that one time. So I might have just forgotten to add it, or that happened and I still haven't noticed, and later it's gonna, like, come back and bite me. So I'm gonna try to figure that out. But I mean, I might have just not added it. So that's why I added it again. So yeah, I think that was what happened, to at least in my situation, because I had to restart the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. But it sounds it sounds like now you're good. You have that. Right. Yeah. Okay. So I want to come back to the diminuendo question. And was it mainly just because that different story had to get in there? Was that it? Or
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
because otherwise you're able to, you understand why diminuendo is there in the first place, and you see that, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, then let me also make sure everybody else gets that one. Does anybody else have any kind of question about diminuendo? Yes, Kevin.
So for the mini window, does it have to be like? Does it have to be like with the whole like change whether or not whether it's going like above or below the baseline, or can it just be like making the first few letters of the sentence of the thing bigger?
I'm not understanding that one.
Okay, hang on. Let me. It's probably easier if I just show you.
Okay.
Uh, how do I do this? This is also totally unrelated. This one is totally unrelated to class. So. But like for right here
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, like how I made this first word in this paragraph bigger.
Yeah. So you're asking me, can you do diminuendo without the first letter and do it a different way? Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
That I've only shown you the classic way that it's treated. Then, but it's also why I told you guys conceptually what is diminuendo all about. And diminuendo is this continuation of hierarchy. So on the first page of a story is where we have basically all of the typographic elements on that page. We have a title, we have a byline, we have the very first paragraph, sentence, letter, word of the story. We have the folio information. We might also have captions, pull quotes, illustrations, those kinds of things. So and even if we didn't have all those things, the very first page, I guess you could argue is the most important page, the first page or the last page, if you had to pick a page. And I tend to think that they both have different reasons for importance, but it is also why we treat the last page in a more special way. All of it relates to visual hierarchy. And so my point that the first page has the most, if not all, of the typographic elements on it is that we have to create a visual organization of that information so that it is clear what's the most important, and as it goes into what we could call the bread and butter, the functional type of the story. Everything else is kind of a lead in. Everything else is a setup to get us to read the story. It's saying, this is the name of the story, this is who wrote it, and this is where you begin. Now go ahead and read. So it's kind of, it's that kind of thought process that you are trying to invite the reader to do. We've heard over and over and over about how we just don't read as much as we used to, and all the reasons why, and and all that business. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if I totally buy the whole argument that we don't read as much as we used to. I think we read differently, but it's all true that we, as typographers and designers in general, we are trying to make visual communication more clear. And the typography side of design is the one that has the most tools for actually to help us make that happen. One of the areas that is, I don't know, a big category of these tools that if we work with them, will help readability and clarity, is this category that we call visual hierarchy. The very first paragraph, we kind of have, I don't know, you could call it a subset, I suppose, of visual hierarchy, because it most often applies, or most people when they're referring to it, if they refer to it at all, they're talking about the first paragraph. But to be honest, if you only dealt with the first paragraph and didn't include its relationship with the title and subtitle, it's not going to be successful. So if you show your screen again, I think I can point this out a little bit. Okay, so if we scroll it up so that we cannot see the title and the quote from George O'Keeffe. So right there. Okay, from right there on, I think we're good in terms of hierarchy, in terms of how the relationship between the title, the byline, the first word into the text. I think that makes sense. We could argue about, is this the way that you or I or somebody else would do it, which is a better way? That's just about art. We all have our own versions of that. But we can't argue the fact that there's a reason for those changes being there, and those reasons are driven by a couple of things. One is it indicates what's most important and the relationship between that and the next things. So that's there. I have no problem with that. Now, if you scroll back or zoom out or whatever, so we can also see, is it the title of the book or the title of the whole thing? So I choose you paper, and then we have a quote from George O'Keeffe. Then we have the title of this article, byline, and into everything else. So now the argument is, okay, is the visual hierarchy across all of these elements totally dialed in? So what are the elements I'm talking about? Well, we've got, I don't, see, at this point, I don't know if I choose you paper is the name of a book or name of a chapter. It isn't, well, I just don't know that, but it's a main thing. I know it's the main thing. Then we have a pull quote. And then we have, sorry, let me start this over. The separate typographic groupings that we are trying to create this visual hierarchy between. There are 1, 2, 3, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's really 8. There's really 8 different categories. They're the title of the book, the pull quote, the author of the pull quote, the title of the article, the author or byline of the article, the first word in the first paragraph, the text type, there's 9. The folio page numbers, and the other information that's listed in the folio. So you've got 9 different elements here that we're juggling. I'm not pointing that out because I think that's too many. I don't think that's too many at all. I think it's pretty normal. But I am pointing it out because those are the things you're trying to create the relationship between. And I can see that because you've treated each of those things differently, because they are different, that you are absolutely on the right track. You've heard me say, if it's different kind of information, treat it differently. First step in making this happen. The second step is then, okay, after I've made them look differently, now judge the relative importance between them. And that's the design part. That's what you saw me doing a little bit of. And when we started today, I first made the styles, then looked at the relationship and decided I didn't like it. I didn't like the relative importance between those 2 or 3 things I was doing. You've got 9. So where do I think that there could be some massaging of this relationship? Well, I think that first of all, you have to make sure that you put the correct dashes. Our free M dash free speech, M dash, no, free speech press is a hyphen, and then there should be an M dash. So just the way I was confused there is partially because the dashes are not all correct, right? That makes sense? Okay, so there should be an M dash between the 2 free words and between press and pictures. Free speech press is a hyphenated word. So we looked to begin with at the relationship between how to spec paper and below, and we thought that was good. And actually, if I cover that up with my hand and I see the relationship between I choose you paper, the quote, and the author's name, George O'Keeffe, I kind of think that balance is fine as well. So I think there's a little bit of confusion between the top group and the bottom group. And by confusion, I mean that the top group kind of reads like it's all display type. And the bottom group kind of reads like it's all text type. So I think that a suggestion would be to maybe either bring the article title up in importance slightly and George O'Keeffe's name down slightly. But the other thing that now I'm thinking of, it might not be just size. And the more I'm thinking about it, I think that this could be it. Maybe it's not the size, leaving the size of everything exactly it is, but there might be some space changes. And this actually relates to one of the things I was going to mention today. Anyway, you see how your second column begins all the way up even with how to spec paper? Can you shade that down so that it begins on the same first line as choosing the right paper can get? Yes. Okay, see how that changes and brings up importance to how to spec paper? Didn't change any size here at all, but it's on its own out there. You know, it's giving it greater importance because of that treatment of space around it. And in my mind, that little change here did it. I think you have you've controlled space in some interesting ways on everything else. You've used the Roman hanging punctuation. You've got the letting less between author's name and what it goes with compared to the author's name and something else. In other words, Georgia O'Keeffe, the letting above it and below Georgia O'Keeffe is not the same. It's greater below it, and that's correct, because if it were the same, we wouldn't know if Georgia O'Keeffe her name belonged to the top or to How to Spec Paper. So I think you're using letting correctly. It looks like you have applied a grid and applied it to the margins. I think that in the folio, this choose should also be capitalized, and it should, I believe, be the same typeface as the actual title, and same treatment there. It's kind of a branding thing. So you've chosen to do all caps up there. So either do all lowercase version down at the bottom, or I think I'd still try though with all caps, because you're kind of echoing the look of the top. Yeah. So back to your original question. Let me repeat that one for us. It's a good example for us to talk about for a variety of things, but your original question was, can I do diminuendo in some way on the first paragraph in some way other than just dealing with the first letter? And you did that, and I'm saying yes. So you made it all caps and bold, and then you opened the tracking on it. So the all caps bold made it darker and heavier. Opening the tracking counteracted that a little bit and lightened it up. So the tracking is an easy way to fine tune the relative darkness or perhaps relative importance. That I needed a little bit more or a little bit less. So tracking is an easy way to control that. Does that help? Oh.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So while we're, once you unshare for a second so I can see everybody, does, while we're still on diminuendo a little bit and hierarchy, does anybody else have any question or comment about either of those?
No, but I was going to point out that he did have M dashes.
Yes. An M dash. Thank you. He had an M dash in front of the author's name, or for the bylines. Yes. So my only criticism on that one was the M dashes where there should, or hyphens where there should have been dashes in the quote, right? Okay. But other than that, really pretty good. I mean, I tend to do this. I tend to pick things apart, and then it sounds like, oh my God, I didn't do anything right. No, I thought you did an awful lot right there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So going back to what he was showing, so and I didn't know if there was, but so like you said, it should match. So like the title in the folio should match whatever the title like font is, because it's more like a branding sort of thing.
Let me. I'm sorry. Quick interruption of that. For what he was doing, I think that makes more sense.
Okay. Well, that's what I was going to say. Is it just for what he was doing, or would we have to do the same thing for this?
Not necessarily, but it's kind of, I also tend to answer those kinds of things in the classic traditional way first.
Okay.
Okay. It's meaning that classically, if you look in any books where they are treating the title and information in the folio with the title, they are probably repeating the same look.
Okay.
Do they all do that? No. The ones that don't, sometimes they aren't paying attention, but other ones they aren't doing it for some other purposeful reason. So I think you can kind of default to almost every decision you made for typography is that first know, am I dealing with the look on this because I want it to make it more readable? Or am I dealing with this word, paragraph, whatever, because I want it to attract attention.
Okay,
So,
well, I guess that's one of the reasons I was asking, because if I were to pick, like, if that were the rule for like other books, like if I had a type that was, I don't know, let's say something that's more script looking or handwritten looking, and that's maybe not very legible when you have it down at the bottom of the page and it's kind of distracting every single time you turn the page, it's there.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So the answer could be, maybe I don't put the title there.
Okay, yeah.
But this branding idea, again, it's a classic kind of approach to that kind of information where it might be. Madison,
Okay.
did I see your hand up there for a second? Yeah. Whoops, unmute. Okay.
Sorry, I was waiting for my brother to turn the sound off. So can each story have like a different type, or does like the chapter title be a different type?
Great question. So the two most accepted formats are to either make every title the same type treatment. In other words, I've created a character style called title, and that's the look I apply to every title regardless of the story. On the other hand, the other option is that I treat every title different because I want the typeface to reflect the personality of that particular story. Then I'm probably not going to create a character style for it because I'm only applying it once. Sorry, I have to interrupt that one. When we finally get around to making a table of contents, a TOC, then the table of contents reads and looks for character styles within the contents of the book. So even in this instance, where we're talking about, well, for any other reason, there would be no benefit to putting or creating a character style if I'm only using it once, unless you know that for a table of contents, the table of contents reads character styles. Okay, so that's a little bit more than what your question was. So let me go back and make sure I answer your question. So do you have to have all of the titles look the same? The answer is no. One classic version is yes. The other classic version is no. Each one is individual because then I make each title more specific to that story. Okay, any other diminuendo question? I'm not paying attention to the chat. Something must be going on.
I have a question real quick about my dashes. So M dash is not for to replace by.
Sorry, say that again.
For M dash. So that's not the one that we use to replace by in the byline?
It is.
It is. Okay. All right, so then I have it right. Okay.
You had it right. You used.
Oh, okay. Because I thought you were saying I had it wrong.
No, you used it
Okay,
correctly for the
That's the
byline.
only thing I have right. Great.
No. Let me make sure we've got this here.
No, I was pointing out that he did something right.
Oh.
He did several things right.
No, I'm not meaning it like that. I'm just, like, hey, just wanted to add a positive thing here. After this whole entire semester, we've been like trying to get at it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, he did it.
I spent so
That's
much
what I
time
was-
with him.
Well,
Like, because you've been telling us this
Yeah.
entire semester, like, please make sure that's right. So I was like, hey, he did it right.
yes,
And
he
that
did.
book,
But he
what I
had-
just showed you guys took me forever to like.
I
Get,
thought he had
I
it
had to go
wrong
back
for a
and
minute
edit so
there. I
many
thought that
times.
was gonna happen. No.
No,
And
I
now I
probably
still
would
have
have just
edits to
texted
make
him
that
and
even
told
catch.
him.
Oh my god.
Gavin, can you show your screen again?
No.
No, he had it right. It was a long one.
Yeah.
There were three places where
I saw the one where Asia's name is, and then the other one, and he had it right on both.
Yes, but up here in the you're not seeing it.
Oh, in the free?
In the pull quote.
Oh, in
There-
there.
Yeah, there,
Three
there,
dashes.
there.
There's 3 dashes.
I
Two of,
wasn't looking there.
yeah,
I totally forgot about that.
two of them are incorrect there. Okay.
Yeah, this one and this one, right?
Yeah, let's make those changes right now so we can see
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I was just looking at the Asia and the Georgia ones.
Yes, and he's absolutely correct there. So now look at the key command for this.
Yeah.
Shift Option Dash.
Huh? Oh, all that.
M dash. Or Shift Alt Dash. I'm sorry.
Mine's
Okay.
just alt dash.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I constantly forget. So now it should make clear that free speech press speech press is a hyphenated word, because it's a different kind of punctuation between speech and press, and that the whole phrase free speech press is an interjection. In other words, it's interrupting the whole sentence. We could read the sentence, marks on paper are free pictures, all are you missing a word there?
This is
Are
the way
marks on paper are free. Pictures all go together, I suppose. We could read it that way. But what she's saying in this quote is that marks on paper are free. Free speech press. Pictures all go together, I suppose. So she's interrupting her own thought to give additional information, and then she returns and finishes the sentence. That's what the M dashes allow her to do. Now, she has two other options that she could have done instead. Instead of the M dashes, you could use commas. Marks on paper are free, comma, free speech press, comma, pictures all go together, I suppose. She could also do marks on paper are free, open, what am I thinking here? The little half moon.
bracket.
Not the bracket. The parentheses. The open parentheses, free speech, press, close parentheses. All three of those options, either the parens, the commas, or the M dashes, are equally correct in that interruption of a sentence. So what's the difference besides the look? Well, the difference is where the emphasis is placed within the sentence. So right now, the emphasis on this sentence, the words that have the most emphasis or impact of this entire sentence are free speech press, because it's separated by the M dashes. If it was separated by the commas, then neither the part in or out of those commas would have more importance than the other. They'd just be a pause. And if they had parentheses around free speech press, it would have, some people say, a little more emphasis on it, but not that much. It's really a matter of contemporary typographers don't like parentheses. They tend to use M dashes instead. So it's kind of more just a fad. Well, it's more than a fad. It's a trend, and the trend's been going on for a while now. But if you went back and looked at books that were written in the 60s, even through the 70s, that are really well-designed books, they're not full of M dashes. They use parentheses a lot. But in the middle, late 70s on, the trend has been to go away from parentheses. And the reason is that the parentheses, when they're typed in, don't sit evenly around the letters, and depending upon the letter, can start to run into them. And we can see this. If you delete that M dash where you're currently clicked, okay, and put an open parenthesis there. Okay, and now move your arrow away a little bit. Oh, that's my arrow. So if you look at that, and actually let's do the other one. Put the one around at the end of the word press instead. Okay. And at the moment, there is too much space between them. But you should see that, especially on the lowercase s, it's not centered within that parenthesis, right? And on the F, because of this typeface, then the bottom terminal of the F curves back, and I thought it was actually going to hit it. And so this happens all the time with parentheses, and it's the main reason why contemporary trends are to not use them, because they're little distractions. They don't line up evenly without some fussing with them, all that business. And the dashes, you may have to kern those as well, but they're not nearly as problematic. So last part on this, change the parentheses back to em dashes.
They need social distancing.
They have a lot of social distancing right now, but what's okay about him is that they're consistent. So he has what I would call quite generous space on either side of the em dashes, but they're consistent that way. So we're good with it. I think there is too much space on the hyphen, so that I think you've got an extra space after the H before the hyphen. There shouldn't be one there. Yeah, and then I think you also have one before the P, but we don't see it because it's on the next line. Yeah, so that's right. And so honestly, you should keep that hyphenated word together, either on the, I don't like that dash on the second line. So try returning the entire hyphenated word, speech press, to the next line. Yeah, like that. And then you might put, I'll go, try just I suppose on the last line. Yeah. Okay, so now you've got the way it's reading. Well, I mean, you could say that maybe the word free needs to be on the second line, and yeah, let's try that in a sec. As long as we're doing this, try the word free on the second line after the dash.
This one.
Yeah. Okay, now being free. Okay. And then try pictures all go together, I suppose, on the last line. And I suppose bring it back up. Yeah, I don't know. I know we're off on something else here, but I kind of want
For this, I probably have to like change the size of it so it can like fit better or something.
Maybe, but more importantly, what I was looking at right now is the way the words read. And that kind of spills over into one of the next things I want to talk about with all of you anyway. That's why I decided to do this, because this is, kind of a different assignment. So when you read especially the headlines, titles, pull quotes, the title of this article, how to spec paper for printing, any of those things, look at how the words of the phrase naturally go together or break apart. So that's what I was trying to do with this full quote here. Marks on paper are free. Then there's this interruption, caused by the em dashes, right? Free speech press. Then we go back to the original sentence. Pictures all go together, I suppose. So that's why I suggested breaking it the way that you did. And we had a different version earlier in this little process where it also was breaking, the lines were breaking more because of how the words went together. The initial version, which had the hyphenated word broken apart in a pull quote. You want to avoid that if possible, and so that kind of led to these other things. The version that we have been talking about the most probably are widows and orphans, where there's a single word by itself on the last line of a paragraph, and we absolutely want to avoid that. And so what we're doing is we're looking at, well, how does the sentence read? And it doesn't make sense to be reading along until you get to the last word, right? You don't want to, we don't talk that way. And so we shouldn't be creating the words to be read that way. That's kind of what it's about. Okay. So thanks for letting us play around with yours on this a little bit some more.
Yeah, no problem. I can always use a lecture on something I've already turned in that's completely wrong now.
Okay. So let's see. Let's go back so I can see everybody. Thank you. Okay. So we should then be able to talk about some other things here now. So if diminuendo and paragraph styles and character styles, we've pretty much got that now. That's great. So what other kind of questions do you have?
Would you mind maybe going over pull quotes and how those work?
Sure. So I like to talk about any of these things conceptually first, and then how you create them, why you create them, that kind of thing. So, okay, so the conceptual part is that you are kind of looking for what is a, we could call it a topic sentence, perhaps, within a paragraph. But it's really even more than that. It's like, because it's off the whole page. So we have a title for the whole story there. We have a title for the entire book there. But we don't have necessarily anything that tells us what this page is about, or this spread. And so I read this page of information, and I might decide, oh, what she said in that third paragraph, that's really what this whole page is about. Okay, so I take a sentence out of there, a word or two out of there, and I leave it there. I copy it. I leave it there in the story itself. I copy it, and then I make it, and I paste it back in its own text box as a version of hierarchy. So, right, okay. And so I've pulled it from the story. That's where we get that term, pull, or that part of the title of it. I pull it from the story, and I'm quoting the story. It's not that I'm looking for a quote that's already in the story. Many stories don't have quotes. You are the one that's quoting them. It's like you are the interviewer. Or that person is, that author is telling you the story, and then you are quoting them. That's the concept behind this. Okay.
Do we have to have that for each one?
For each story, or for each page, or what?
For each story.
I think in terms of consistency, you probably have one for every story. Yeah.
Okay.
And a couple reasons for this. Does this mean that every story in every book has to have a pull quote? No. But you are also trying to create something for your portfolio that shows your ability and skill to handle all this stuff. So, and then you're trying to balance showing that and not, and do it gracefully and artistically. So we're not going to do it on every page, and and that kind of thing. So we have to find the art. What is the balance between how much I pull quote and how much I don't? And which things do I choose to do that to? And then finally, how do I treat it so that it fits into the overall visual hierarchy of all of the information? That's what somebody looking at your portfolio and seeing that is going to appreciate. So how do I do it? I pull it out. So we just saw one that Gavin had done, and it's put on there as, actually, I'm not sure that was a pull quote or not, but it's a quote. let's just, for the sake of argument, say that that was in the story. He pulled it out and treated it that way he did. So he made a pull quote, and then he treated it so it fit into the overall hierarchy of that page. We can do, last time I think we were looking at 3 columns kinds of things where you can have the pull quote start in one of those columns and extend over into the other 2 so that the rest of the story text wraps around it. You can do that kind of thing. And then you typically want to hang the Roman punctuation. And so let me share my screen a little bit here because it's hard for me to just talk about this and have it make any kind of sense. So, all right. So I have this little quote here. And so I'm going to, I was starting to do it as a style. Since you guys are clear on the styles, I don't think I'm going to do that. No, I'm just going to plain make it. Okay, we're okay with that. So I have this text, and if my regular text size was 18 points, then I probably want to pick a size that, or excuse me, the leading is 18 points, something that's going to fit into my grid. So, and that's going to be with the leading, but I'm also want to make this larger. So I'm going to go up, let's go to 24. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Okay, so I have something larger. And let's do the column so that we can get a sense of that, like I was talking about as well. And okay. So we've got this going here, and I'm going to set up my design rule. Again, when I say set up your design rules, it's like, what are the things that you are going to decide that you can control the look of everything to create some kind of consistency and unity. So I'm going to say, I am going to only have the story run in 2 columns out of my 3. And I'm going to reserve the inside, reserve the left-hand column for pull quotes when I have them, or images when I have them. I'm going to have them start in that column. And then if they need to get bigger, they will go into the 2 columns of text that'll be on the right. So that's that's the rule I have in my head now. And now I'm going to try and show you what that might look like. So this is the size I have, and I decide that I want it to go down to 2 lines, and I have a 1-word second line here. And I don't want that, so I'm going to bring this down to here. Now the leading at the moment is too tight, but it fits on the grid, but it's too tight. So the first thing I want to do is open up the leading. And if I open up the leading to the next increment on the grid, my grid right now is 18 points between lines. So my next increment would be 36 points. So that's going to look like this. And it's on the grid, but I think that's way too far apart. Well, I just had it on this line. That was too close. So what am I supposed to do? So I want to show us another thing that you can do with the grid now. We've been talking about using multiples of the grid as in 2 lines of the grid or 3 lines of the grid or 4 lines of the grid that way. But we can also go subdivisions of the grid. We can go smaller. And to be honest with you, I'd say don't go more than dividing the grid up by more than, I guess, depending on the grid, it could go fourths. But let me show you what I mean. So we have this. I'm going to go back to my grid. And so here's my grid. And I have my baseline grid. And I really need to be able to do this, I have to do it on the document grid because I can't subdivide up here. So on the document grid, subdivisions, I currently have 1. Now, I think I mentioned this to a couple of you last time, but I think that is a bit misleading. Subdivisions to me implies, well, I'm dividing it already, so I should already have that letting divided, and it doesn't. So if I put 2 in there, it will. So I'm going to put 2 in, say OK, I come back out here. So when I show the document grid, you can see now I have these gray lines that are halfway vertically and horizontally. So it's subdivided the main grid in half. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm not seeing you all on the screen right now, so if that does make sense, please say something. Oh, good. Okay. So we've subdivided the grid by 1 line in between, and I had to put in 2 to get that to happen. All right. So what does that mean here now? That means at this point, I can take this and make the leading go back so it's here. So it falls on that half point. So it's opened, it's not all the way up to here, but it's still on the grid, but it's just not as far apart by subdividing, okay? So that's one step, dealing with the leading. Now the next one is this dealing with the hanging Roman punctuation. And so again, I want to describe this conceptually first, and then how do you do it? So conceptually, the whole reason to hang the punctuation, the reason is that these little punctuation marks, and in this case, there's 2 of them. There's the ellipsis, the 3 dots, and there's the open quotation marks. Both of those little marks, and virtually every other kind of opening punctuation mark, or even closing punctuation mark, is fragile. It's a delicate little creature in relationship to an actual letter. So it doesn't matter what the letters are, whether they're capital letters or not, and actually if they're capital letters it'd be worse, there'd be a bigger difference visually between the amount of space that's taken up by a letter compared to the amount of space being taken up by a punctuation mark. So in this case, we've got this little punctuation mark, the quotes, this little punctuation mark, the ellipsis, and it seems like there's a whole lot of space up here, even though that space is occupied by 2 punctuation marks. It seems very open compared to right below it, that same amount of space is taken up by 3 letters. So visually, this should seem to you like it's more solid use of space, and this same amount of space up here is more open. It almost seems like an indentation. Okay? We don't want that. So what we want to have is if the punctuation were not there, it would look like that. Okay? Looks even. It's flush left. But when the punctuation goes in there, it doesn't look even. In fact, it's kind of ugly, but it doesn't know what it wants to be. So we need to do some adjusting. So the first thing is I need a space between this punctuation mark and the first letter. That needs to happen. And that only makes our life more difficult. but that's what needs to happen. Now I need to go to the story tab. Did I have it out here? I just closed it. Story. No, story's open. Why can't I see it? Here it is. Okay, so story. All I need to do is click this optical margin adjustment. When I do, you should have noticed that bump over. I'm going to uncheck it, and you can watch it again. So here's the quotation marks. Maybe we'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, so when I click this box, optical margin alignment, this is going to move to the left. Okay, so it moved over about the width of one of the two quotation marks. Now, if we didn't have the ellipsis there, this is a better balance. It's an optical illusion that it is even. It's not a mechanical evenness. It's an optical illusion that they are even. The problem is we've got the ellipsis in there. There we go. We've got the ellipsis in there. So so because of that, we need to change this default setting down here. So it moved this over 12 points. So in this case, you can kind of get a sense of how much a pica is. It's about the width of that single quotation mark. But we need to move it more. So we're going to click this. And as we click it, you can see it moving over. And so how much do we move it over becomes the question. It's an optical illusion. So I'm now leaning back a little bit away from the screen. And I'm trying to decide, okay, at what point does, let's see, let's do this. Actually, that might be, no. That's all it's going to let me go. It doesn't even let me go any further than that, because that's quite a bit. And what we're after, again, is this point where, okay, this seems like it's sticking out, and that's more of a distraction than when we started out with the quotation marks directly above the A. So we have to figure out what that place is. And it's going to help us to make that judgment if we hide the grid, because the grid is not an optical illusion thing. The grid is, because the grid is an actual measurement thing. And so it's kind of making it difficult for us to judge what's an optical illusion thing. There we go. And then actually, if we and so we're trying to get this to visually look like it's even. So I don't know if I'm totally there yet, but I do know that it's a better balance than what we started with it, with the quotes directly above the A. I think it's a little bit too far to the left, but maybe 4 or 5 clicks back to the right. So meaning we're back in here, and let's go down. It's jumping back and forth on me. Maybe in there would be a better balance. But this is I picked this particular one because it's a much more difficult kerning kind of project or example. Most of the ones that you'll have for a pull quote will be like this. So now, obviously, the H is too far to the left because now it's a letter. It's not just that delicate little punctuation, 3-dot ellipsis. So I'm going to change this all the way back to 12. And I might increase it just slightly. You know, maybe up in there to get that balance. And so I guess if you were trying to measurement or use some kind of rule of thumb to get you in the ball game, I'm looking at this, not the little serif, but the vertical line of this U, and where does that fall up here? And it falls, you know, right in there someplace. So it's an optical illusion. Did you have, is it Lolly, did you have any other question on the pull quote?
Would you mind showcasing how you would do a pull quote for like maybe on that other page where there's like the text already there?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
If
Yes, let's do that.
okay.
Okay, so let's, I'm not seeing the columns. I don't know why I'm not seeing my guides. So let's go back to here. Zooming in or out doesn't make a difference.
You brought both of them in?
Sorry? What's that?
Oh, sorry. I was talking to my son, my bad.
Oh. Well, I need to see the guides here, and I'm not seeing the guides. I don't know why.
When we worked on mine last week, I went in there and it's just certain little things that I don't know how to fix. Like, yeah, for another time.
Okay, so okay, so I'm going to say that my story is going along here, and I'm using the 2 right-hand columns for this, and here's my pull quote. Then I'm starting over here in this left-hand column. But it doesn't have enough room to go across. And if I made it so that it only fit in those 2 columns, it's going to look very choppy. It's going to look like that, you know, weird hyphenated words and choppy. It just isn't a good look, and it's not readable or anything. But I have to, so I have to do something with this. I have to create space for it. I'm going to change this to be flush right rather than flush left. So, so we'll make it flush right. Okay, so here we are now. And then I have the pull quote selected. It is on top. I'm going to go to text wrap and choose this option here, my second one in. So it's the same thing that we were doing with the graphics, in that the thing that you want to have wrapped, it has to be on the top. So we can either choose it, rearrange it, object arrange, bring to front, or if it's the last thing we make, by default, it will be on top. Okay, so it's sitting out there now, but the space around it is not evened out. So if I've done all the typographic things that I want to do here, and I don't think yes, I have. Okay. So the thing that I'm going to do is take this type, have that text box selected, and change it to outlines. So it's now a graphic. And as a graphic, again, we're going to text wrap it. And you can see right away now the space around it is more even, especially on the top and the bottom. But the right-hand side is not because of the quotation marks. And oh, I didn't mention this. When you do hanging Roman punctuation to text that is flush right, it also pushes the quotation marks further to the right. And that's what we can see here. Okay, but I do need to push the story text further to the right to get, so it's not right on top of the exclamation, or the quotation marks there. So I have it selected. I'm looking at the text wrap option. And down here, I have 4 controls that are called offset numbers. There's a box and an arrow to the left of each of those controls. The box stands for the thing that you are trying to wrap. So in this case, the box means the quote. The arrow means how far do you want to push the story away from it. So I want to push the story on the right-hand side of the box further away. So that's this one. Then I click this, and you can see the text moving away. And again, it's a visual optical illusion. So I'm going to go to right there. And actually, I'm going to go a little bit further. And when I go a little bit further, notice the line below jumps down here. And I think it's doing that because there's a long word up above it. But if it's not that, then I need to take the text itself and bump it down using my down arrow, and just bumping it down so it falls on a baseline, but evening the space out above, below, and on the right. So now I am going to bump this over just a little bit more, I think. And maybe there. Okay. Did that answer your question about how to place it?
Yeah, that helped a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I guess a variation of this would be, well, what if I'm not doing this open column on the left? I'm actually running the text all the way across the page, something like that. So now where I place this becomes an issue.
Okay.
And the hard part is that you're going to end up, if you do like I just did, you're going to end up with a straight line on 3 sides, the top, the bottom, and either the right or left-hand side, depending upon if it's flush left or flush right pull quote. But the other side is going to be uneven, and that's kind of ugly. And that's why I was using the left-hand column to begin with. Now, I can do it here, have the text run around it with no story on the left-hand side, and that works as well. What I don't want to do is what I had here, or here.
Okay.
Right? It just is. It's not cool at all. So okay. Any other question with pull quote?
No, I think that actually answered something else that came to mind from you, like when you were messing with that, because then it occurred to me, well, then is there a rule of thumb for like where you place that? You know, whether it be lower, upper, or in the center or wherever. So that kind of clears that up too, when like knowing that there's something you have to keep in mind when it comes to placing the pull quote.
Yeah, it's about the space, isn't it? It's about how
Yeah.
the space flows around it. I can think of another part to that. Let's say if I move this right up in here. So, in fact, I could go to maybe there. See how this space above it, there's a whole lot more? Because what I've done is I've placed it at a spot where there isn't enough space for this line of the story to come all the way over. Therefore, it seems like there's more space on top. If I just bump it down to there, now it's not enough because the space down here, there isn't enough to balance it out. So I bump it down a little bit more, maybe right in there. So now the space is more even above. In fact, it's forward. If I go too far, like in there, it was enough space to allow this second line to slide over. Now we're back to the same situation. It's too tight on the top in relation to the bottom.
But you still have to put it on the baseline, right? So it matches?
You do. So right in there.
So if you put it on the baseline though, that won't happen, or will it?
It will, or it can. Sorry, it depends on which baseline you put it on.
Okay.
So, for example, if I put it on this baseline right there,
Hello?
I've got too much space above. Because my
Hello?
box, which is the bounding box, there is no space for this line to slide over. Therefore, there's that amount of space plus the leading between the two paragraphs. So I guess the short answer is yes, it can, just by putting it on a baseline doesn't automatically solve the problem. It does need to be on a baseline, but that doesn't by itself do it. So, and I'm kind of not zoomed in to really see right now. But, so you do have to pay attention to the baseline, and you do have to pay attention to the resulting space. You could ask, well, do I have to change this to outlines to do this? And the answer is no. Had I paid more attention, I have a widow here. And so this is a problem now because it's no longer text. I can't edit it. So I would need to undo all the way back to this text to get the word R to be down in the second line. So if I pay more attention to that in the first place, and then change it to outlines, would be okay. All right, so let's stop this guy. All right, how about a different kind of question? Think of your own project. Let's see, a couple of folks I haven't heard from for a while, so I might call on them first. Sorry, Jess, I haven't heard from you from a while. Can you tell me where we're at?
Hey, so I'm just where I'm at right now is I'm putting like the basic formatting into the thing, into the pages for InDesign. I'm adding more pages. and stuff. I finished editing the articles, so now I'm just putting the basic layouts in, as in title here, author goes here, story goes here, and just trying to like format it until I can organize it well and stuff.
Okay, so that's good. So I understand where you're at. You realize you're a little behind, but that's we're okay as long as we know where we're at, right?
Yeah, I feel actually really okay. Everyone really just asked most of the questions I was kind of concerned about, but I was like, oh, okay, so it
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, everything made sense and stuff. So I'm planning to work on it after class today to add more stuff into it before I start inserting the articles and start like working along with like the typeface and stuff.
Okay, very good. The way you said something early on reminded me of something that I haven't mentioned so far, but is a common mistake. I don't know if I haven't seen anyone who's doing this yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if at this point in the game somebody was doing it. But I want to encourage you not to do this, and that is your title and your byline and your story. All of those should be in the same text box.
Same text box. Okay.
Same text box. Don't have a different text box for title, a different text box for heading, that kind of thing. The only exception is the pull quote. So the pull quote, you saw me just do it because we're doing it. If you wrap it, I just did a text wrap. So if you're wrapping something, then that has to, and it's text, that does need to be in its own box. But everything else, the story, it also is in one long continuous text box. And the reason is that if you edit it, you change the typeface, the author gives you another paragraph or something, everything will reflow, and you don't have to change anything around. If they are separate.
Does the folio have to be in the text box too?
Well, no, because the folio is on the master page, right? Yeah, good question. So anything on the master pages just stays there, and the folio should be on the master pages. But anything as a part of the story is one long thread, so that it can reflow. You just saw me change that when I brought that story from 2 columns to 3 columns.
Yeah.
You saw everything worked. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't know if anyone happens to be doing that, but in the past, that is a common mistake. Yeah, so we don't want to do that.
Okay, for sure. I'll keep an eye out on that and definitely will avoid that at all costs.
Okay, Maria, can you let us know where you're at?
I was just catching up with the lectures because I was missing the Wednesdays, so I have to I was going through them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being here with us. We like you being here and catching up on this, because when you can start doing that stuff by hearing some of the questions and hopefully some of my replies, that it'll help you to move forward more quickly.
Yeah.
And if there's any part that you hear right now, even if it's not something you're ready to be able to do, but doesn't make sense, ask anyway.
I think I'm gonna go over all the lectures by today and tomorrow, and then by Wednesday I can ask you if I have any questions.
Okay. I try to work along with them, because if you just listen to them all the way through, I think it could be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I was trying to apply some things like how to make page and the columns and stuff like that. So I was going along with them, and I was taking notes as well.
Okay, that sounds good. And maybe I can use this opportunity to say as well that, and some of you have done this, if you want to send me anything to take a look at, I will. I didn't realize that through Canvas, for me to easily comment back on if you sent me a multi-page InDesign PDF, it's actually a little bit hard to get into all of that. So if you, and I didn't know that last time because I said that you could. Instead, it'll be easier and faster if you just simply take a screenshot or something like that of a particular page you want me to comment on. I think I can get back to you a lot quicker. So that's my fault I didn't realize it was going to be that big of a deal through Canvas, but it is. Okay, let's see. Vitsa, how about you?
I have, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So, I have the book, I put the text in and I started formatting it, and also I basically have everything. I was about to start designing my cover page.
Okay.
But I still have to format the text. So, but I think I'll be done with that soon, and then I can start designing the cover page.
Okay, and it makes sense how to set up the styles.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, because
We
that's
have started using that in our graphic production class, so I was kind of like familiar with that already.
yeah, good,
So,
good. You should see some similarity between GD3 and production and this class, because
yes.
as you can tell, InDesign gets, you know, a little bit of a headache there. So if you get some repetition and different people telling you hopefully the same thing, but maybe in a different voice, that it starts to make sense.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Noah, how about you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to being finished. I too this week was going to start working on the cover and illustrations. I do have a couple questions though.
Okay.
Where would I control the orphan? Because I remember like years ago, there was like a specific setting for that, but it looks a little different now, and I'm not quite sure how to handle that with the new way that setting looks.
Yeah. Well, there's a setting called hyphenation and justification, H and J. It's a preference, and that will, by playing with that, you can see the results of how many hyphenated words will be allowed in a paragraph, things to that nature, and it will reflow all the text in one way. And it's especially helpful if you are getting a lot of hyphenated words because of the particular combination of margin and number of columns and typeface choice. So if you notice that you're getting like more than 3 hyphens in a paragraph over and over and over again, then you might look at the H and J preference setting. So that's for all of us. This is new information unless you've already been dealing with this in GD3 and production, but it's a finer point. And so that's one, but you're probably looking for something different before that comes about. And that is what you saw me doing with Gavin's opening quote, where I was just saying to return a word here and there, you know, to first eliminate a widow or then balance out the readability. So I honestly, I promised I was going to look into this maybe halfway through the semester, and I've yet to actually be able to do it. Something else came up, but the soft return is the traditional way to do this, which means you put the cursor, insert the cursor in front of the word that you want to return to the next line. So you put the cursor there, hold the shift key down and hit return. It will return that to the next line. And the idea is that it won't trick, it's actually tricking InDesign so that it won't think there's a new paragraph. And then if you need to reformat or resize the text, it won't put in a strange break in the text. Well, that's not necessarily true any longer. The best thing it does is it doesn't make a new paragraph, but it doesn't prevent weird things to happen if you have to reflow the text. So, okay, having said that, now let me share my screen, and let's see if I can try to correct that here. Okay, so let's say that this is one word, and this is a new paragraph. Okay, so I have this, and let's get rid of some of this stuff. Okay, so I think All right. So here we have this orphan.
Professor,
Yes.
your laptop's gonna die.
Oh, dang it. Since I moved. Yes, it is. Okay. I'll be right back. Hang on.
Wow, good eye.
Yeah, good eye, Jazz.
How did you even see
It
that?
wasn't me. It was Pow that told me. Like,
Oh,
his
good job, pal.
I was
He
like,
has a-
how did you know his laptop was gonna die? And then I
She's
looked,
psychic.
I wish.
Because
I'm glad you all are
her
so
name is Pal,
enthusiastic
she
about this shit. I'm just not liking it at all. I'm not liking this shit one bit. So, just wanted to share that.
I know how you feel. We got one more week.
It's understandable.
I mean, I hope that I never have to use this like in life again, like, or I can just call
If you're
somebody.
a designer, you're gonna have to use this again.
Well,
I ain't making no books. I'm not.
You know, the problem is that we didn't get like the first assignment before this, which would have helped us get into it. So this is like on the spot.
Yeah, it's
And
all
then, like,
brand new to me,
being
and I
here
don't
at-
like
at
it. This
UOP,
shit has me frustrated daily.
Graphic design department has a weird obsession with books, so we're gonna be using this again for other classes.
Like in life, I don't need this because I'm gonna do this all type of art.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing another book too in the other class. So
Yeah, and I'm doing a magazine cover.
That's fun.
Another class.
In
there's
in design and
Yes, in design.
So who feels like they're behind on this assignment?
I do.
I just feel a little overwhelmed.
You guys are all ahead of me. I haven't even done my technical drawing.
What?
It's like I get stuck on the I get stuck on the littlest.
What do you mean?
Well, you do have until. Well, technically, she does have until next week. So I mean,
what May 5th?
Oh, I'm not done with my technical drawing either. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in there.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm not good with this online stuff, man. It's just,
No, it's a real
it's
hassle.
a challenge.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Why didn't you bring my burrito from the taco truck?
See, I know I said I wanted to
Why
work
didn't
on
you bring
the
my burrito from the taco
but I
truck?
don't think
That's
I'm
why you
gonna be
disappeared.
able to.
Oh wait, no, that was
No, my parents got it. I was just
man.
hungry.
Tell them bring me one, please.
I don't know where you live, except I guess we could just meet at Food Source or something.
All right.
I wanted to work more on my technical because I needed to work out a few kinks before I did the formatting, but I don't know. I think at this point I'm gonna just focus on the book. I wound up.
I'm doing everything else.
Huh?
I'm doing everything else.
What that?
I'm doing like all the finer stuff right now, and I'm gonna do this.
But your dolls look good.
Yeah. I found a Zippo, so I can make the box. I make the bag thing. So I'm happy.
Guys,
I was
she's
like,
back.
Okay, let me finish this little part for us. Sorry about the interruption. So if I have this single word on the end of the line, I need to give it a partner. So I'm looking up. I'm looking any place up in the paragraph above it, and I'm looking for either a short word that I can return to the next line, or a hyphenated word that I can get rid of, which will also help us. So I see a hyphenated word here and a hyphenated word here, and if I return them, it will reflow everything. I think that this one is going to create the least big hole in there, the smallest big hole. So I'm holding the shift key down, hitting the return, and it flows the text down here. So I've eliminated that hyphenated word, which is good. Now I don't have two in this paragraph, so that's better. It's a long paragraph. And it reflowed all the text below it. Oh, sorry, I guess I have three. So that
You did a soft return?
I did a soft return. So I'm going to take that back up. And let's try this one up here instead. And that one ended, that one's actually a better choice. So I only have 2 hyphenated words remaining, and I no longer have my orphan. So no, that's, and the rag on this side is better. It's not, doesn't have as many big holes in it. So does that help a little bit? No?
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah? Okay. Now, as long as we're here, the worst offender is, let's say that this sentence ended you up with one last word on this. Okay. So now what we've got is I'm reading along this paragraph, and I would have to go to another page. Let's see, something like this. So this text continues down here, and it has one word. So it's not only a widow like we had up here, it is now an orphan. I have to go to the next page to finish the paragraph in the sentence. That's absolutely no. Don't do that. And we want to avoid it if possible. Up here, this is an easy fix. When you wouldn't do it is that, let's say to only get rid of, let's say what I had done up here did not get rid of the widow, then and the only way to get rid of it was return one of these words, which was a long word, and created a big hole at the end that was more distracting than the single word at the end of the paragraph. If that's the case, then we would leave the orphan, the widow, sorry. You never leave an orphan. There's no, even if there was a big hole here, you would still return the word to over here, so this guy isn't by himself. And I would even argue that that's still not, even a couple words is not very good. So I really would look back at this paragraph, and is there any possible way that it could be rewritten or reflowed in some way that everything stays on this page? But you absolutely wouldn't want a single one on the next page. Okay, so let's see. Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm fine.
Doing fine?
Yeah, I guess. You have any questions? I mean, like, I don't know.
Are you still there? Or did you freeze up?
Hello?
Are you still there? Are you thinking?
Can you hear me?
I can. Are you thinking?
No, I mean, like, I have all my stories in there, and I like made the character and paragraph styles. I'm just kind of like figuring out where to apply those styles, and then like what's it called? Like, I don't know where I am with like the cover page. I don't know what I'm gonna do for that, or like illustrations. Like I wasn't even sure we like needed those. So
Okay. Well, you do want some graphics in there. They're not the most important part of this book. Again, if we think about showing in an interview situation all your skill, then if you can show how you handle graphics, how you, as images, photographs perhaps, that also would include captions about them. We haven't talked about captions yet, but you need to caption your illustrations. you know, that's just going to reflect better on you as a designer.
Yeah. It's just like getting the motivation to like do work at this point, honestly. Like I hate quarantine right now. Like I'm just like really not having a good time. So it's just finding time and like energy to like actually work on stuff.
This is a good question. You do not necessarily have to create new images here. So I'm going to give you a different ways you can approach this. You could use stock photography. You could use somebody else's illustrations if you want. You're captioning or crediting whoever the artist or photographer was. So you can do that here. Now, having said that, if I'm sitting across from you at an interview table and I'm interviewing several people for this design position, and the two of the people have shown me layout kinds of things and their ability to handle a lot of text as you have, right now you're kind of all even, but they've also shown me that they can illustrate or that they can also be a photographer. They're gonna have an edge, right? Because they've shown a wider range of skills. So you have to think about that. You could even, for the sake of this, now I'm talking about this later, you know, like an interview situation. For this assignment, I am telling you that you do not have to create new illustrations, new graphic works to do that. You can use someone else's, you can use stock ones, and then perhaps later, you know, do your own to substitute in there when it's in your portfolio. So you have that option here.
Okay.
Okay.
Got you.
Okay. Clara, how about you?
Sorry, I was writing.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm doing good. I did have all of the stories in formatted, but I didn't like my last two, so I'm just currently like redoing that. And I made my cover page and like the table of content page too. So I'm just like trying to find my theme and like what title and like stuff, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said you made your table of contents already?
Yeah, but like I don't have all the pages because I'm like redoing some stuff.
Did you follow the InDesign tutorial on how to do a table of contents?
I didn't.
Yeah, because there's a special way that we do it in InDesign. So, it's good that you have one. You just made a page that has everything on it, right? Okay, so now imagine that, okay, you have this book, you've got a lot of pages in it, and you've just typed in the titles and the pages that these stories began as it exists right now. But let's say tomorrow, you think you're almost done. And now tomorrow, the author comes to you, or the editor comes to you, publisher comes to you and says, oh, we want to add another story. And not at the end of the book, but like halfway between these two stories in the middle of the book. What's that going to do to your table of contents?
I'm going to mess it up.
It's going to totally mess it up, and you're not going to be happy. And then let's say after you do that and redid it again, then he comes back to you and says, sorry, we changed our mind. We're not going to put that story in. So now it's not just a matter of taking the story out. It's your table of contents is all messed up again. So InDesign will do a little system where it will read the character styles that you assign to these titles and everything, and know what page that they are on, and create a table of contents that is fluid. In other words, when edits are made within the text, if that changes a page number that something is on, that will be reflected back in the table of contents. It's actually kind of a cool little feature. I haven't demonstrated that yet. If you feel you are ready to do that and you want to, I have some links on our assignment page, and you're free to go ahead and do that. I just haven't demonstrated it yet. I wanted to make sure we get this styles business down. Okay. But otherwise, it sounds like you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Regarding like the class, not this assignment. I was just wondering when we'll get like our grades back for our previous assignments, because a couple say they're missing, but I already turned it in.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You should have gotten them a long time ago. It's an issue.
Oh, okay.
It's I don't have much I can say there. They're late. It's my fault they're late. Any of you that there's an issue there about grades, I will probably, if we haven't talked already, and there aren't many of you, and for a variety of reasons, then there are other options that we're looking at for the course, but you are not one of them. So the grades need to be, you need to have your grades. So as soon as I can possibly get all this other stuff that's a mountain out of my way, I will do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Let's see, Madison.
So I was able to finally like figure some of the stuff out on InDesign.
Okay.
So I have the stories in now, and I have the titles, and have like page info and like some stuff at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So now I just have to go in and like design the text and edit it, and design like the book stuff for it.
Okay. This sounds like you're on the ball. Any question about how to do something, or?
I'm just going through it, and I'm gonna look up some of the videos on now, and I'm gonna see where I'm at on Wednesday. And I've been doing a little finals, so I'm finally have time to do it. So.
Okay. Okay. Take notes as you're going through. Okay. Let's see, Selma.
I have a lot of background noise. I'm sorry.
Are you still there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought I lost you for a minute.
Yeah. 1 sec. I got 1 second. Sorry. I had to run to the bathroom. Okay. Okay. I think I'm like super behind, but okay. Yeah. Sorry, I've just been super busy. And I've got like also background noise. So with the book, I think I'm just having a problem with my story because I kind of screwed it up with like the choice of my stories, because it has a lot of sections to like one story has a lot of sections, and I'm not know how I would work with that, just because all your directions and like all the other stories don't have sections like the ones you gave, and everyone like talking about their stories. I'm kind of nervous to work with those. I'm not sure if like that's correct, but then I was assuming like, yeah, like it could work with those, because I was like kind of struggling to like, should I just get totally different stories or should I work with it? Yeah. And then I haven't really, I think like I just, yeah, if I'm good with the stories, then I really just need to get in there with the whole details of all the styles. And yeah.
Okay, let me interrupt you for a sec. So first of all, absolutely it's okay to work with sections. There's one of the stories, and I continue to forget the name of which one what is, that has the years interspersed in there, and those are essentially like sections as well. But that may not, you didn't look at that story, I don't believe. So
you're probably thinking of the Devil in America.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So the idea of sections is one more of these various ways that we, various kinds of information that we treat in this visual hierarchy. So when we were looking at Gavin's there early on, I think we counted up 9 different levels of typography on that page. And so we said there were the name of the book, the author of the book, the name of the article, the author of the article, the pull quote, the story, the first word, the story itself, the page number, and the information which was also in the folio. So yours is no doubt going to include most of those same things plus a section. So the section, if it's not titled currently, you can title that whatever you would like. If it is titled currently, then that part's done. It's just how you treat it typographically. So what do? Well, you look at how it compares with all of these other kind of categories. If it helps you to make a list in pencil with the different kinds of things you have throughout the book, that might be helpful. Sometimes I've done that, especially when there's a whole variety. So I would list things like title of the book, author of the book, your name as editor, the folio information, the page number, as well as any other information that you have in the folio, the diminuendo, the first initial letter, the text, the sections, the pull quotes, the captions. So I don't know if I've listed them all there, but those are examples of what I mean. So you might list those all down in a piece of paper and then think of it like an outline, put them in the order of which of these is the most important, or which do I want to appear to be the most important. And then do that across the list. So I might have the title of the book at the top of that list, and I might have something like, I don't know, captions or page numbers at the bottom of that list, and in between all of the various sections in their relative order. And then when I come to that particular thing within the book, I will know that I need to give this more importance or less importance because of how it's supposed to fit in the overall visual hierarchy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the conceptual part, right? Again, I'm doing it conceptually first. That's the first side of it, is to understand that big picture. Okay, so then it gets to be, how do I do this? So so we're saying we're using either character styles or paragraph styles to control the look of the book. So we've done that with a couple of things already, mostly dealing with the first paragraph stuff, because normally that's the most complex one. But now, okay, so the question becomes, should I make a character style or a paragraph style for a section title? That's kind of our question, right? And if is your section always one word or a couple words, or does it vary, or is it a number?
It kind of varies, but it is quite a bit. It's not like super small. I want to say about a paragraph at least.
Oh, then I would make a paragraph style. That makes it easy. Make it a paragraph style. Okay.
But sometimes it's more than one paragraph.
Sorry?
It doesn't matter if it's more than one paragraph though, right?
No, you're just creating the look, and then you apply the look to however many paragraphs you need to apply it to. So if you've got now I think I'm picturing what you're talking about. So your section is not just a word or two. Your section is like 2 or 3 paragraphs perhaps that interrupts the story.
Yeah, and there's like everything. It's like made up of sections. And
Got
there's
it.
just all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a paragraph style for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a great thing. So again, if we think of it conceptually, we want to be reading along, and then we have this other 2 or 3 paragraphs, whatever length it is, and we want to be able to visually tell that this is an interruption in the whole story. And it's an interruption for what purpose? It's introducing a new chapter perhaps or something, or it's introducing a new section, or it's introducing supplemental information, or it's telling us, well, we're going to do a flashback, or we're flashing forward, or something, however the author has written the story, that, or it's giving us background information. All of those are very common reasons to have those more lengthy interruptions as sections. Another way to treat it is, remember I've talked a lot about using a 3-column grid, is that perhaps that the right 2 columns are for the main story, and then that this interruption stuff is always placed in the left 2. In other words, the center is always shared by either the story or by the section. So that's a way to lay it out like that. Does that make sense how I'm trying to describe it?
Yes.
Yeah, because I can try it again. I mean, it's just an example anyway.
No.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we're
no,
looking at, we're looking at ways to treat the text differently because it is different. And we're also then styling that difference according to its fit with everything else. In other words, according to its hierarchy, its place in the hierarchy. Yeah? Selma?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're writing.
Sorry.
You're writing. Got it. Anything else I can help you with right now?
All the author, it's like all one by one person, or like not even one person. It's like, I don't know, like a website.
Okay.
I don't know how to explain it, but it's all by one person. So would it just be like the same for each one, or can I somehow just have one? I don't know. Yeah.
Yes. So you decide how you want to word it. And if you want to listen to it or word it in the sense of you could be very formal. All stories written by so-and-so. Or these are excerpts from the source. So let's say that it's one author, but it was all written for New York Times. Okay? Or these are stories from a novel by such and such. So you can word that however you would like. I've been encouraging us to think about the writing aspect of this to a certain degree, because increasingly graphic designers are doing copywriting. And that's because the number of editors that there used to be, especially in the publishing business, has been cut about a third. There used to be, on average, 3 levels of editors for almost everything. That just doesn't exist anymore. So who's doing this? Who does it fall on to do this extra version of editing? The graphic designer. And so, and that editing many times includes copywriting. So the kind of copywriting that we would do as designers are things like we've been practicing with a title and subtitle, but it also might be in terms of how we credit or word the credit or the source. And that's what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you have a lot of creative license there, and how you write it is also important as the visual to set up how we feel about this book. Is it going to be inviting us to read it? Does it look like a technical book? Does it look like a fantasy book? Is it a murder mystery? Is it suspenseful? Is it funny? You know, is it very tongue-in-cheek? Is it satirical? Is it political? What is it? You know, so the look of how we treat these things, primarily with our choice of type, this is a typographic assignment, as well as how we word certain things where we have the ability to do that in the titles and the subtitles, in the way we present the sources or author. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, very good. Let's see. Jay.
Okay, so since last time we spoke, I was stuck on so what do you call it? I placed the rest of my stories, but then I could not figure out how to um like it ended up being hecka long because I couldn't figure out how to change the paragraph style again. Like I created new ones, I did all kind of stuff, and it yeah, it's just not working out well for me. It's really frustrating. Like the last two stories that I placed ended up taking about 60 pages because it was only like 2 paragraphs per page, and I couldn't figure out, like I kept trying to change them to where the font and just paragraph style was all different, or like consistent from the first story, but it just didn't happen.
Well, let me give you one or two things to check first, and then if those are still a problem, then we'll talk some more, okay? So the first thing is that make sure the actual text box is long enough to go down the entire page, so it's not just a short text box and then the text jumps to the next page, leaving a lot of space. You know what I mean there with that?
Yeah, and I'm saying like, but the size of the text and everything is what the problem is. The size, the leading, just all that. It's like it looks like it's an elementary school book, but it shouldn't be.
Oh, okay. So then if you've applied a style, then you have to open up the style and edit the style.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, remember last week we created all these different paragraph styles and stuff. And then so like when I would highlight from say the beginning of the paragraph that I want to, make it all just what do you call it, like story paragraph style, like where it's just, the basic text like from the first stories, it won't do it.
Remember, that isn't the way you apply it. You just click in the paragraph. You don't highlight.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's just like all stuff that like really just makes it hard for me. Like, let me see if that might work. Cause that it's just driving me crazy, man. I've been super frustrated for days now. Like I was trying to get a couple classmates to help me over the weekend, but they left me hanging. I understand everybody got work to do, but yeah, it's really like I wanted to just throw my laptop and that would be good.
Well, let's not do that. Let me let's look at this together again a little bit. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to deal with any of the diminuendo stuff or any of that. And I'm going to take this out. And I need real words. Well, I think this will still be okay. So InDesign is going to interpret anytime we have a return, technically called a hard return, like I just did. So there's now space between these paragraphs.
Correct.
InDesign is going to interpret each of those places as, in fact, a new paragraph. Well, that's what we want it to do. Even if I do this, if I have this on its own line with no space between it, InDesign will think these first 3 lines are a paragraph and this is a paragraph because I put in a return. Okay, so what I'm telling you there is that by putting in a return is the clue that you are giving InDesign to say, when you apply a paragraph style, only apply it from, if I've clicked in this space between these 2 returns, when I pick a paragraph style, only apply it to the words between those 2 returns. And then stop. And then.
So you're saying to highlight that whole paragraph?
No, I
or
just use the word
okay.
highlight.
Okay. Just click in
Click
that
in here.
paragraph.
So I put a return up here that created that space.
Mm-hmm.
Return here that created that space.
Mm-hmm.
I've clicked in between any place in here
Mm-hmm.
in the words between those two returns.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I apply a paragraph style, it'll only apply it to all of the words between the two returns. If I click down here now, I can apply a different paragraph style, or I can apply the same. Okay, but it only does it by what I've clicked in. Now, if you want to apply it to a whole bunch of text, then you can highlight all the text and click one paragraph style. You can do that. But I think that that's getting you in trouble here. So let's go back to doing it one paragraph at a time by just clicking in the paragraph.
Okay.
All right. So now let's do one. So I'm going to have the paragraph styles open. I'm going to create a new paragraph style. And I'm going to open that one up. And for our purposes, I'm just going to call it test story. Okay. You can title it whatever you want, but make sure it makes sense to you to describe where you want to use it. Certainly don't leave it with whatever the default title was. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So once I've done that, then go over here to basic character formats. And that should look very familiar to you. The very first thing you want to do is set this leading to the next whole even number as a minimum. So for me, that's either 16, or it's 16. That's the next whole even number. I could go 18, I could go 20, I could go 22, 24, I could go any whole even number that's higher than 14.4. But at a minimum, I want to go to 16. So I'm going to do that first. Okay? I can stay at minion here. I don't know what minion looks like. I'll just leave it at minion. I don't know what it is. I have no clue. But it'll be a start because I'm creating a style. Okay? And then the size, I don't know if that's big enough or not either. I'm just going to leave that. So really, if I know nothing, all I need to do, remember, is change the leading to the next whole even number over here and title it. Okay? And then say, okay. Now, nothing has happened yet. So, I was clicked in there. And I'm going to, I'm just going to simply change this to something else so we can see a difference. Okay. Something more obviously different. Okay, so now, okay, so I'm going to click in this paragraph. I'm going to open this up, call it test story, look at basic character formats, change this to the next whole even leading, and these I don't know what they look like, so I'm going to leave them alone. I say okay, and then now since I was clicked in that paragraph, it applied that paragraph style to it. So now I decide, is that the look I want? If it's not, then I simply open this up again and move the window aside so I can see. Let's say that I wanted to change the typeface. So all I have to do is go here and I'll pick something else, or pick something else. And let's say that's too small, so I pick a different size. So I do that, and then now that I've defined the style and applied the style, I can very easily change the look of it quite, with one click. You know, we've got all sorts of, you know, it's very easy at this point, as long as I've defined that style in the first place. Okay. So, all right. So let's say just for kicks that that's the style I like. So it's there. Now I want to apply it to the rest of the story. So I'm going to, if I do it a paragraph at a time, which I'm kind of suggesting that you do now, is I just click in this paragraph, then click on the paragraph style, click in that paragraph, click in the paragraph style. Okay, and so you can see they're all updating to that look. Now let's say now that I've got it on all of those, again, I've changed my mind. I don't really like that. So I go back here, open it up, and I decide I want a different typeface. So I'm going to go in here, and we're going to try this typeface. And notice that it's now changed everything in one click because the style is applied to all the paragraphs. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now let me come back out here for a minute because there's two other things that could be going on for you, and one of them is again back to the space. If your text box ends up here, you know it's going to leave all this space below, and it will go to the next page. So you just need to make sure that your text box is the size that you want it to be, whether it's all 3 columns like it is currently, or just 2 columns, or...
Yeah, I didn't change the text boxes at all.
Okay, so that's not an issue then.
No, it's just, okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay, okay. I think if you just make a new paragraph style, okay? In fact, I would do it by not clicking anything. So pick the arrow key, so you're not clicked in anything.
Mm-hmm.
Make a new paragraph style, and do what we just did.
Okay. Another question I had, keeps slipping my mind. Dang, it slipped my mind. It was one I've been thinking all day, waiting to ask too. Shoot. It was about, man, it'll come to me. It'll come to me, hopefully.
Okay. Well, tell you what, I'm going to, if you can hang out here a little bit longer, Jay, and we'll talk some more.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to end here for a minute. I think that particular thing, though, I'm hoping is going to clear up a major frustration. But if you want to, there's, I think, 1 or 2 people I haven't really spoken with yet. So let me do that first, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Hot Scene, I've made you wait here today. How are we doing?
Because I talk too much.
No, don't say that.
I am, I think I need to, well, I already picked a typeface and everything, but I'm going to change the title, which will be easy because I already have the, styles in there. I have my diminuendo in, my styles and all that for the first paragraphs done. So I have all that in place. I think my next step is working on fixing rivers and widows and possibly orphans. I don't even know if I have any. And then the next thing I was going to check and see is about pull quotes. Now I'm going to I have to check the list of everything because I want to go back in and make myself like a checklist of everything to make sure that I'm not missing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the things I'm working on right now.
Okay.
Got my folio and stuff. I do want to add in the title in there, but I haven't done that yet, but I will.
Okay. It seems to me that I think you are the person who sent me, I know it was earlier, but it reminded me of something I barely touched on with Gavin's first page. And it was the other side. That's what it was, because it was in column.
The other one?
Yeah, it was in columns, but we still might have this occur on an opening page that many times doesn't begin up here. It begins further down the page, someplace on the grid, of course. And we have the title up here, or we might have a spot illustration and a title, but the text of the story actually doesn't begin till further down. And many times it only includes the first paragraph. So in this case, we might have this be all the way down something
Are
like,
you talking about the one with the spider because it has that or are you talking about like a specific story?
no.
Oh.
But what I want to try to illustrate here is this kind of idea.
Or wait, are you sharing your screen? I didn't see.
Oh, am I not sharing screen? I thought I was.
Well, no, that's why I was confused. I wasn't
Oh,
sure.
I'm sorry. I thought I had.
No, it's okay.
All right, here we go. So I've narrowed this down to basically, we're going to pretend this is all one paragraph here, and this is all this paragraph. Okay. And we have a title. And okay, so we've got something like that going on, and then we have the first paragraph, and really the shortness of that paragraph doesn't really show. So let's make this a little longer. Okay, so let's say that the story starts something like that. We have a title up in here and a byline in here. Oh, sorry, it would never be down that far. I don't have the bottom margin going. It'd be something like that, perhaps, as opposed to this whole thing beginning up here. So there's more leading in here below the title. And we're probably going to have okay, so it might have a look similar to this, where on the next page the text does start up here, you know, and so it's opening up the space more on the front page, where leading takes a bigger part in helping with the hierarchy and that kind of thing. So that's another consideration here for you. But I was thinking that do you also have columns where you're going to columns? Why am I thinking of that?
I do. Well, I do have columns in there, but I also have columns in my other book. So maybe that's
what it is.
I think that's what you're thinking about. My other book has.
Yes, it's in Chief Seattle.
Yeah. But so, and like for this one, I had changed the columns around, and then that's why I was like, you know, I kept making changes to things because I had changed it. But I do need to put a grid in here because I was putting things in there intuitively as well. And so I do have to do that. But I was going to fix my typeface before I did that too, and actually pick it so that I had, you know, kind of some of the same changes that I have to make to, or that I'm trying to make to Chief Seattle, I'm doing over here as well. So I've been bouncing back and fourth.
Yeah, they should inform one another, but I'm sorry, I confused this there.
No, that's okay.
I had it in my head that little thing I wanted to bring up on yours, and it's in the other class.
And I'll probably send you like a like at least a screenshot of like one of these pages that has like the first page or whatever, just to kind of get feedback on that too. After I make my changes that I'm trying to make still. Yeah. But like I know my diminuendo is in there and like the styles are in there, so.
Okay, so one of the things I want all of us to do is to go back to the assignment page and look at the student examples that are in there, and not just from the big carousel view, but click on them and get in a little bit closer so that you can see how they handled things like diminuendo, initial pages, things like that. And when we started the assignment, I would doubt that we all did that, because at that point, you kind of didn't know what to look for, I don't believe. But now you can kind of, you're struggling, not necessarily struggling, but you're trying to solve those problems yourself. So I believe I have a number of pictures on there that are examples of that kind of thing. It's not a showy thing. This kind of stuff that we're talking about is a finer point. And I think I've said to you in the past that good typography is not noticed because it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to draw attention to itself. It's supposed to draw attention to the words and make them more easily read. And the more we do with this, I am hoping that that particular bit of advice starts to take on greater and greater meaning, because it's really important. And it's dealing with all these little picky things. The other thing that I want to mention to us, because I overheard a little of your conversation when I was away, and that is the idea of this stuff that you might feel like, well, I don't plan on being a book designer. You know, I can see what this is, but I'm not going to be creating books. That's not what my goal is. So how is this going to help me? I'm never going to use this again. It's actually not true. The InDesign is arguably the most important design program out there. We'd like to think it was Photoshop. We'd like to think it was Illustrator, but unfortunately, well, I don't know if that's unfortunately, it's just that InDesign is the key. It's the one that moves back and forth between the world of illustration and graphics, between image manipulation and photography and page layout, both for print and for online kinds of things. And so I think it's important for us to keep that big picture of things. The other side that's important for me to repeat for us is, notice I've been talking an awful lot about space in some way. Sometimes I use the word space, but not always. You know, I might be talking about leading or kerning or size or use of the grid or margins or 3 columns or offset amount of space between a pull quote or a graphic and the text. It's all about the space. It's about the composition. It's about how these things relate to one another visually, whether in terms of hierarchy or just giving them space to breathe and be, you know, sit on the page, easy to read. So we learn that stuff in a variety of ways. We learn it in Design 2D, at least we get introduced to it. We talk about it in every single art class, but in here, it's got this technical side to it that, in fact, if you don't do it, it kind of rears its ugly head and kind of says, wait a minute, hold on here. Can't do anything, go any further until you address it. And so hopefully we learn a bit more about that use of space, composition, and layout in here that we can apply to everything else as well. So again, it's kind of a big picture thing. So I just wanted to say that to us. I think it's an important thing to keep in mind. I think you guys are all doing just fine. I think that, again, we spend a lot of time, and I appreciate your patience, going over things, because we want everybody to get it. And each of you have an opportunity to express your own version of it, I hope, and find your artist voice in there. And at first, that's hard to get out because you're trying to understand how the master pages work and the folio information and this and that. It's like, I just want to get that. And then there's going to be a point where, oh, I kind of get it. I can do this because this is the way it should feel. That will happen. And it's definitely possible. I can use my own story here, and I talked about it a little bit with use of the grid. I resisted use of the grid like crazy. I thought it was so restrictive, just totally rebelled against it. And it took me, and it was to my fault, I took longer to let it in. And when I finally did, I'm glad, but boy, I resisted that. I can't tell you how long. And it pays off. So I do appreciate your patience with this. I do appreciate your efforts with it. You are all doing fine with it. You're finding your voice with it. I'm looking forward to see how these turn out. Do look now again with fresh eyes on maybe some of those student examples that are there. Yeah, I think, does anybody else have any question you want me to try and address here before we sign off?
I have a question. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Noah?
I wasn't sorry. He can go ahead and ask.
Oh, okay. I'll come back to you, Hatsine.
For the cover design, is that going to be a facing page design? So like we're doing the front and the back?
As a document, you mean?
Yeah.
The cover document, a couple of you have asked about this, and I've loosely answered, and I guess my answer is going to be loose again today. But the cover document is a separate InDesign document that you, in fact, make one page that's really long. Then you pull out guides to divide it up into 5 panels. Those 5 panels are the spine in the middle, the front and the back cover, and the front and the back inside flaps. Okay? So the height of that cover. So the way I'm describing it is like a dust jacket. Okay. And so, and I still believe that's the way we should go here. Most hardcover books, they might have just the title imprinted on it, but that's about it. We want to, again, show more ability. So the dust jacket's the easiest way to do that. When we get back together again and we can print this, we'll make this whole solid book. Anyway, the height of this dust jacket cover is the same height as your pages. The horizontal measurements, though, we don't know for sure yet, because we have to put the pages together and then take measurements from it to apply to the cover. We can do some rough estimates, though, so that you can start the look of it. And so those rough estimates would mean, okay, if I'm doing the letter half size, then I know that my pages are 5.5 inches wide. So then I'm going to make my front and back cover panels 5.5 inches wide. And we know they're all 8.5 tall. The inside and outside flaps, we're going to make 3 inches, since that's going to be a little more than halfway of what those front and back panels are. That's a rule of thumb for inside panels, like over halfway. And I picked 3 for this because it's a whole number. I like to keep the math simple. Okay. Then the remaining one that we haven't sized yet is the spine. So the spine is totally determined by how many pages you end up and what kind of paper those pages are printed on. So again, if we want to get something started to just get the design going, knowing we're going to adjust the sizes later, that's fine. So then I would say, well, let's make the spine an inch and a quarter wide. And those measurements are not accurate, but they are going to be in the ballpark for the size of book that you guys are going to end up with. Some of you are going to end up with books a little thinner. Some of you are going to end up with books a little thicker. But you're going to be in that ballpark of the sizes I just mentioned. Does that help a little bit, Noah?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Hutsine, you had another question.
I actually had a question about that with the spine, and if we were just gonna like guesstimate like what it would be, and then we would just fix it later. So that answered one of my questions.
Okay. Okay.
The other one wasn't a question, but I was gonna add to what you had just said. And one thing that's been helping me when I'm doing something that I might not exactly have the most fun trying to learn how to do is the other day when I joined that. I don't know if anybody else joined it, but I joined the AIGA COVID webinar that they had.
Yeah.
And it was about like what to do in this day and age of COVID and what the trends are and how they're hiring graphic designers. And one of the things that they did mention was that because there are so many like layoffs right now in industries, and they're asking for people that are staying on or that they are hiring for graphic designers to pick up and do a lot of work that they wouldn't normally have done. And one of the ways for us to be more, I guess, marketable was to also have more skills that kind of gave us that like adaptability throughout other like departments. So that's been helping me anyways when I'm thinking about like doing stuff, because I was like, oh, like there's certain things that I'm like next semester or whatever, gonna take film production. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do that, but it would add to my skill set. So that's just like, I was just gonna add that on, that like when we think about like the future and when we're trying to find a job, that might help us.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So that's all I was gonna add.
Excellent comment. I'm very happy that you went to the webinar as well.
Jasmine.
Yeah, it's funny. The things that we want to do many times we have to be able to do a whole bunch of other things to get to the point to do what we really want to do most of the time. Yeah. And then along the way, sometimes we're surprised because some of those tangential things end up being the thing that we really like. Yeah. Or find out we like it better, at least. But that's all related. It's just all related. It's all design. You guys should you should be living, breathing design about everything. It's all related.
Yeah. So anyways, I was just gonna add that because I mean that's what was helping me kind of like, I don't know, a daily thing. I have to remind myself.
Yeah. No, very good. Thanks for adding that. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Any parting thoughts or parting shots? Okay. Well, it looks like I did actually succeed in recording today, so I'll be putting that up. It takes a while for it to process, but sometime this evening it'll be up if you'd like to have a relook. Okay. All right. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. I'm just
sorry. Oh, I mean, like a private question.
Sorry?
Like a private question.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I know how you said that, like, you haven't really...
Still recording.
Oh, no, thank you.